When I was in graduate school in New York City, I was working on the writing on 19th century Catholicism in the United States. And I came across a man by the name of Isaac Hecker, who was a convert to Catholicism and an evangelist. He wanted to bring Catholicism to the people of America. And he was very progressive and very interesting figure. He also started a book publishing company called the Paulist Press in 1865, which is the oldest Catholic book publishing company. So I got to know the Paulists, and when I got out of graduate school, instead of teaching, they offered me a position to come work as an editor at the Paulist Press. And they had just started a thing called the Classics of Western Spirituality. So I quickly became the editor-in-chief of that series, and for 10 years was the editor-in-chief of the series. The series was, and is, an extraordinary undertaking. The idea was, back in the late 70s, there was this craze in the United States about Eastern religions, transcendental meditation, Buddhism, yoga, and our insight was, look, there are these great spiritual masters in the Western tradition which people just aren't aware of. So let's do new translations in English. Let's get the best people we can find to write really good introductions. Let's put covers, the colorful new covers onto this stuff, and let's do it. Let's do Christianity, both, Eastern and Western. Let's do Protestantism, let's do Judaism, and let's even do Islam. And now most of the books were Christian, and many of them were ancient and medieval texts. And the wonderful thing was this series was a huge success, not only critically, but commercially. People were buying it just to have the books. I don't know that they were ever reading. People weren't taking these texts to bed. Gregory Palamas, this is great beach reading, But they were buying it, which was great because it meant we could keep publishing them. And I stopped at volume 65. And my colleagues continued going. I think they're at about 120 now. So our Eastern Christian texts, we did Gregory of Nyssa, we did Maximus Confessor, we did Gregory Palamas, we did Nicodemus of the Holy Mountain, we did, those are the ones that come to mind, and we did others, I think. And so we did Simeon the New Theologian, and we had, the wonderful thing was we got the cooperation of some great scholars. In the United States, our Orthodox people were John Meyendorff, and then in the United Kingdom, Timothy Ware, Callistus Ware. And so they guided us and helped us get people to do new translations and good introductions. So it was a great honor. I often say it was a big mistake to leave that. I sort of got beguiled when I moved to Washington. I got beguiled with all these political things, and I started to work in law and public policy and religion and all this stuff that I do now. But those books have had just to come here and see them in your library was very encouraging. So that series has been a great blessing, and it still goes on. Hopefully, I can return to it in some way. I am planning to do that, and we were talking about doing some 19th and even 20th century books in the hesychastic tradition, which would be really wonderful to make them more widely known. So I now work on this question of religion and society, which we've been talking about. And I'm writing a book called The Intelligible Sphere, from that definition that was very widely used in the Middle Ages. God is the intelligible sphere, whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. And so I will look at political theory and argue that religion is not only okay for society, but it's needed for society. People, the more free the societies are, the more you need religion, following the famous French writer Alexis de Tocqueville, who said, you'll either be religious, living in these open societies, you'll either be religious or you'll be living under tyrants. Because unless you have religion controlling the individual, you're in trouble. So following that theme and then doing some of the legal stuff, there's been a lot of, just to speak a little bit about that, we didn't talk about it, religious liberty issues are very important in the civil legal world. And both internationally, because of the very excellent Declaration on Human Rights, you know, that of course we have, in Europe you have the Court of Human Rights, under which an individual, even in Greece, even a group of monks in Greece, for example, could bring a claim for religious, saying that their religious freedom rights were being infringed, and they could enforce that court could enforce that judgment in Greece against the Greek government. So this is a very big issue today. What is religious freedom? And it is not simply the freedom of an individual to believe what he or she wants. It's also the freedom of institutions. And this is very active in US law. We just had, for instance, I'll give you an example of a case that came from our highest court, Supreme Court, recently. We have this new health care law, which is quite controversial. We call it Obamacare. But it mandates that employers offer insurance coverage, and that's the way healthcare is provided mostly in America through. And you know, you're working for a job, and the job pays for an insurance company. So there's a third-party insurance company who provides the care. So Obamacare said that third-party insurance company has to provide this huge range of services before the employer could figure out what they wanted to pay for. Included in those were contraception, including abortifacient forms of contraception. Well, this one company that was owned by a evangelical Christian, rather large company, had thousands of employees, but said, we provide 10 of these forms of contraception, but there are 4 which we think cause abortions, and we're not going to provide those because of our religious belief. And the question was, could they get an exemption? And they won, much to the chagrin of the secularists and the people who had written the Obamacare law and the Obama administration. But they won. They won resoundingly, and this is an example of the way in which these rights are very robust, and I think that's a hopeful sign. So that will be part of the book too, just to end that, and then the final part will be, how do religious groups respond? You know, sort of a theology of church-state engagement. What is your role? What is our role as believers, as citizens? How should we respond? Should we just live separately, or should we engage? How do we engage? Just to say what an extraordinary thing you're doing here, and I'm sure you're well aware of it, but to come and experience this, not only the history and the great tradition, but the vitality, the idea that it's alive and well, I think really goes to my earlier point about us moving into a post-secular society in which religion and faith have a real important part. So thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your ministry to me while I've been here.